Hello, I'm Charlotte Cohen and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Wednesday the 28th of January. And today we are looking at the transfer window.
I do not expect him to be, the Henrik Larsson of our team way back some years ago, but he has got some really good qualities.
A striker has finally arrived at Celtic, but will he be the real deal? But the hot topic there is still the controversy from Sunday.
Celtic down to 10 men! Auston Trusty sent off after the VAR review. Straight red card. The denial of a goal-scoring opportunity.
We'll discuss that Auston Trusty red card plus Celtic's appeal. And with the goals still coming from a familiar source for Rangers, do they now need options up front?
Scores into the right-hand corner. John McCracken nearly got a touch to the ball. And after 48 minutes, thanks to Captain James Tavernier, it's Rangers 1, Dundee 0.
We've got all the transfer window action covered right here.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Alongside me to do that, Times Scottish football correspondent Michael Grant. Michael, good morning.
Morning, Charlotte.
And former striker, who better to talk about needing new options up front than Cillian Sheridan. Cillian, good morning.
Good morning.
Who better to talk about somebody scoring goals than somebody who scored a goal at the weekend, eh?
Yeah. Great intro, don't mind that.
It's fresh in your mind. It's good. Yeah. Plenty to get into with Michael and Cillian. And before we get into the transfers, let's start with the big talking point from Sunday at Tynecastle. Celtic appealing Auston Trusty's red card, obviously ultimately losing the appeal, red cards upheld. Cillian, what was your take on the incident as a whole?
When it happened, I don't think it's the big mistake that people seem to think it is. I think it's one of those where if it goes against you, you're thinking, oh, it's probably a little bit harsh. And then if it goes for you, you're probably thinking, yeah, it should have been like that. Not to sit on the fence with it, but I didn't think it was such a straightforward, that's definitely not a red card or that's definitely a red card. I think it's just one of those, it's probably right in between the two of them, depending which side of the fence you're sitting on. It comes from some bad defending in the first place. I don't think Celtic played particularly well in the game, and it's probably overshadowed that maybe a little bit, but definitely had an effect on the result, I would say. It gave Hearts a bit of encouragement and momentum at that time, and probably pushed Celtic back a little bit more than what they were. But in terms of the decision, I'm not too sure. Though I know a lot of people are saying stuff about VAR and clear and obvious error, but I think that's kind of given referees a little bit of an out sometimes, where they probably they know they don't have to make such big decisions, that they always get a second chance to either pull them out of it. I just felt like that was possibly a case there.
Michael, they obviously appealed the decision, lost the appeal. Did you think there was ever a case where they could have won that appeal?
I thought it was unlikely they would win the appeal. I thought the SFA would. It's an independent panel, but I thought the SFA would kind of back their man, back their decision, back their team. I suppose where Celtic's statement does have credibility is this point about was it a clear and obvious error, and should the VAR have intervened? We've been told before that VAR will have a lower bar for intervening, and a mistake has to be clear and obvious before VAR will come in, because the tariff will be lower, a lower bar for intervention kind of thing. But I think fundamentally, in my opinion, the right decision was reached in the end, which is VAR's reason for existing in the first place in Scotland. The one thing, it would be quite interesting to hear Cillian's take on this, but there's been a lot of talk about the ball moving away from goal. I'm not so sure about that, because the ball is actually really slowing down. If you watch the move, if you take your eye off Kabori and Trusty tangling, the ball's actually really slowing down. It almost comes to a stop just at the edge of the 18-yard box and a couple of yards in from the D. To me, Kabori's going to get there. He's a quick player. He's going to get there. He's going to get a shot away before Murray comes across. So I don't think to me, there's not much doubt that it was a goal-scoring opportunity. But the debate, I guess, is it's a subjective call, as Cillian says. And if some people, neutrals, would have agreed with McLean's initial yellow card, then is it a clear and obvious enough error for VAR to intervene?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't say it was such a cut and dry, that's a blatant mistake from the referee. And then I know the fact the ball's going away from the goal, and it probably depends what way you're looking at it. From behind, it can look a little bit more like he's going to get through. I do think there's loads of times where you're looking at stuff like that, and it's up to the referee. If the referee thinks, well, that player, I don't know how exactly fast that player is. There's a lot of guesswork going on where maybe that player would cover in, or maybe Kabore still has to come in and he's going at an angle where he has to turn his body around. By the time that happens, he might be faced up 1v1 with Dane Murray, but he might not. I just think there's a lot of guesswork in it that's why I don't think there's a real black and white, yes, he was definitely going to go through and have a shot on goal.
The funny thing about this is that we're sounding very reasonable about this, but if you look on social media, Celtic fans are outraged that it's a red card, and every single Hearts fan says, "Oh no, quite right. The right decision was made for." So it's not, it's completely binary along fans' lines, but that's what you expect. That's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. You always get that, don't you? One side thinks they've been wrong, the other side thinks, no, this is exactly right. But one of the other...
I think that's exactly where it is. It's right in between. It was definitely a mistake, or it definitely wasn't. I think it was like right, almost like a 50-50.
I guess we have our answer, so we can move on from talking about it. But yeah, the other kind of news from Celtic was the debut of Thomas Chvanchara. They've obviously been really, really needing reinforcements up front. Cillian, do you think he looks like the answer? He obviously didn't score himself, but he set up Yang for one of the goals. Do you think he looks like he could be the answer up front for Celtic?
Yeah, he's definitely brings something different. He's a real presence up there. Looks to be quite mobile as well. You could see that where he sets up the second goal. I think they said it a lot in commentary, and you could see it in the game. He did try and take a lot of stuff and do a lot of things first time, when you're probably looking for him to just hold the ball and let the team get up the pitch, especially playing away in a game like that. I think that can often come from a slight lack of confidence when you're not really fully trusting your touch, and you just want to try and do things first time to take away that pressure of having to take in a good touch and hold up the ball. So maybe that's an issue that will come over time. He should have a bit of confidence from the game. He's a solid enough performance, gets an assist. So we might see that over the next few games where he'll have the confidence to actually take the ball in. He's a good size. It looks like that should be something that he's good at. And then maybe a little bit unlucky not to get a goal, but other than that, it was more impressive than unimpressive, really. And
I mean, he's not really solved all of Celtic's problems. Fans are still crying out for signings. Shin Yamada's left. He's gone on loan to a Bundesliga 2 side that I tried to pronounce yesterday and failed miserably. So I'm not going to do it again. But Michael, are you expecting any more arrivals between now and the end of the window? I mean, we're fast running out of time for Celtic.
You know what? That should be a straightforward question, and I'm not sure that it is, to be honest with Celtic. You would certainly think that they must be busting a gut, you would think, to try and get players in. They've been linked with Casper Ho, the Bodo Glimt player who scored a couple against Man City last week, £6 million. He strikes you as the kind of guy that a lot of clubs are going to be interested in, especially after a kind of hot performance like that. I mean, the kind of narrative around Celtic at the moment is they've got a week to save their season, because there's now 6 days left until the transfer window shuts. They look they still look so light up front to me. I'm like Cillian. I thought Kavanka had a pretty solid debut. Really, grew into the game, and he looks like he's got a bit about him. I think Martin O'Neill has quite cleverly diffused expectations around him and said, "Listen, don't pile everything on this guy. He's not going to be the answer to everything." But to me, it sounded quite a clever way of taking pressure off him. Whether he's going to be a prolific striker or not, I don't know. I do not think that's really in his CV. I think they still need a bit of presence up front. I mean, Kavanka, Iheanacho, who's injured, Johnny Kenny, who I don't think is going to be a frontline Celtic striker, and Maida, who is probably more effective wide. It's a pretty slim attacking unit really to go into the last phase of the season, and especially when they're not all available.
You dread to think what the response from the supporters will be if that's it for the window.
I think they're almost primed for it, aren't they? The Celtic supporters, they're so angry about their board's inactivity. I said on here a few days ago that you speak to people at clubs and agents and so on, and they say that they do actually have some sympathy for Celtic's inability to land players, because they're trying to land players who might be thinking they could end up in the English Premier League, and then so they hang off and hold back and don't commit. So I would expect there to be late activity at Celtic on Sunday, Monday, and maybe a big name loan, for example. But also, this track record of this board is not good at getting deals across the line, and it wouldn't surprise you if they fail on that front again.
Move on to talk about Rangers. Their squad rebuild seems to be continuing. The big talking point from yesterday was these reports of a 13 million bid for Youssef Chermiti. Cillian, what do you think is the appeal of somebody like Chermiti who's kind of struggled to score goals?
I don't know. I wish I had his agent when I was playing at that age. I think it's a probably quite a bizarre move if it came about. I don't know what. Sometimes football can kind of questions things that you see, but yeah, I mean, if that was the case and they were getting offered that, I think they'd be mad not to, or to chance for them to recoup and possibly actually somehow make money on that deal as well. And it kind of seems from the outside, seems as if that deal was a big reason for Thelwell, yeah. And I feel like that was one of the main reasons, or maybe the last straw that kind of lost his job. So I think if that was to be the case, I think they'd be mad not to try and do it. Even if it was like half that price, you're thinking, God, yeah, let's just cut our losses. But look, that's football. Sometimes a reputation goes above what is actually happening. Young Portuguese under-21 international, maybe clubs look at that and see some sort of potential. But yeah, I think if there's any truth in those rumours, then I think it'd be hard to see them turning that down.
Do you think, Michael, maybe Rangers are looking at this and thinking we kind of need to keep our options up front?
Yeah, I think they are light up front. They don't have. I mean, there is goals in the team, but not necessarily from their strikers. Majowski hasn't been a hit for them so far. Danilo could be on his way out, and Chermiti, let's be honest, he hasn't been impressive for £8 million. I mean, you can see that physically he's got some attributes. He's quick enough. He was good in the Old Firm game. He's tall, but he's not been impressive over the piece. And I'm with Cillian. If that kind of money was on the table, it seems remarkable that you wouldn't just quickly turn him around. Rangers haven't been good at this for years. They haven't been good at accepting bids and knowing when to sell. Now, financially, they're in a better position now with the American owners, so there isn't that kind of need to sell. But if that's the correct figure, That's a lot of money. And I saw, I mean, talking about Thelwell, I saw a line, because it's Fenerbahce that are supposedly interested to this level. And I saw a line saying, like, is Kevin Thelwell working for Fenerbahce now? Because it's him that seems to be financing or trying to finance all these big moves for Shermity. But yeah, that was an eyebrow raiser when we saw that figure yesterday.
Gassama is another one who's been attracting a bit of interest. I think approach from Monaco for him. I suppose, Cillian, it's an interesting problem for Rangers who are probably trying to get rid of dead wood from their squad, but are getting offers in for some of their newer, more important players.
Yeah, I feel like Gassama is probably one of the better signings that they had. And the other side of that is, if you're the player and a club like Monaco's coming in for you, where you're Champions League pretty much every season, it's a club that develops players and sells them on at big prices to bigger European clubs. You've the lifestyle, you're living in Monaco, especially something like that at this time of the year when you're here in Glasgow, and you have about 4 hours of daylight. I think something like that, it can often change a player's attitude, or how they are, maybe not their attitude, but just how they probably are playing in games and doing pretty much around the place. I would say it's a move that the player would want, and would try and force things through to make something happen. I think if there's any sort of truth in that, if there's a chance for him to go, I think he'd be the same way we're saying Rangers would bite the hand of a club that's offering 13 million for Chermiti. I think Gassama would probably be the same, in terms of if there was an offer coming in for him to go and play for a club like Monaco and have that lifestyle. From the player's point of view, you'd be trying everything to make that happen, I think.
Do you think, Michael, Rangers could afford to let him go at this stage?
Yeah, he's been one of their better players, I think. He's had his little spells of inconsistency, but overall, I mean, they only spent about $2.5 million on him, and he's quite an exciting player. He scored a cracking goal at the weekend. I mean, we're saying that if you got that kind of money for Chermiti, you would sell him. The thing is, they want to keep a team together to win the league, because they're within touching distance of being able to go all the way in the league and potentially get into the Champions League and get the riches that come with that. So you need to be careful about upsetting the team balance and also even the messaging that it would send if you're selling popular players in January. But again, the reported fee for Gassama is like, wow. I mean, 4 times what they paid for him. Has he been 4 times? Has he enhanced his reputation by 4? I find it amazing, to be honest with you. But that's the reported figure. I'm just struck by Cillian's obvious envy at the prospect of the potential of having a move to Monaco. It's just seeping out of you.
Totally justified as well.
Exactly.
Totally understandable. Well, let's move on to talk about Aberdeen. Still without a manager, but they're still managing to get their moves done in the transfer window. There's kind of been more departures than arrivals. Dante Polvara looking like he could be the next one out the door. Michael, what do you think the strategy is from Lutz Van and Steel in this window?
Well, I mean, basically to restructure the squad. There's been too many players that have really just not contributed at Aberdeen. There's been too much dead wood, and guys like Yengi and Ambrose who just didn't contribute at all. Dorrington's away back. He did play well for a while. He's away back to Spurs. Sockler's been allowed to leave. Polvara, as you say, looks like he's on his way to America. And there's still others that I think they would like to just shape things out. But you're right, they have been busy. They have been active. It's mainly loan deals, but Lyle Cameron's come into midfield. He's already played twice and well. Excuse me. Liam Morrison, the young defender, Scottish guy, ex-Celtic, went to Bayern. They've signed him from QPR. He didn't play at the weekend yet, but he's going to come into central defence. Olasanya, former St Mirren striker, come back to Scotland. And they also signed a Norwegian keeper who I think the intention there is to put pressure on Mitov, who's been inconsistent this season, to say the least. Some brilliant saves, but also some howlers. And now they're trying to get this Afiza Ruma, if that's how you pronounce his name. He's a defensive midfielder from Kaiserslautern, Nigerian. He's got one international cap, I think. Now, he's very much a Lutz Pfannenstiel signing. I mean, you can see how much Aberdeen's sporting director is involved and is shaping the club now, because a lot of these deals have his fingerprints all over them, in and out. And, as you say, they still need I almost said we there. Aberdeen still need a manager. But maybe he'll prioritise that. But I also think the manager might not be long in coming either. I think Aberdeen fundamentally wanted to get a bit more British character, resilience, a bit more aggressive, British style players. So hence Cameron Morrison. Olasanya, who's not, but he knows. Well, he's English, isn't he? So he knows the league, though, And I think they just wanted players with a bit more physicality and competitiveness about them.
It's interesting, Michael, you mentioned Olasanya. I noticed he said when he signed that he had unfinished business in Scotland. Cillian, what do you make of his return to the Scottish Premiership? What do you think he'll bring to Aberdeen?
It's probably a smart signing from Aberdeen. Like Michael's saying, they've gone for players that probably know the league more so than what they've been doing up till this point. Probably more lower risk signings for them, where they've got players who come in, know the league, know what's expected, probably know the size of Aberdeen as well as a club. And I think that probably goes a long way in the Scottish League. You see it, guys who come up and don't really know the league tend to struggle a lot. So I think it's probably quite a shrewd, clever signing from Aberdeen. And then I think in regards to the manager position, given what Michael's saying about the signings are a lot of the sporting director's signings or vision, I feel like he's going to have a massive input into who the manager is, or more so it's kind of, or a coach now as they're called. But I think the club have obviously put a lot of trust into him. I kind of feel like this season they've almost just kind of written it off. That it's like I think the best they can do is get top six. And other than that, they're not really, there's no danger of them getting relegated or anything like that. And I think they've just, I feel like it's probably a safe time or a safe bet for them just to kind of write off the season and then maybe look towards building for next season, where they can actually maybe have a bit more of a go at things.
Charlotte, I mean, the other name obviously in Aberdeen's January window was Jesper Karlsson leaving, and he, Cillian's making that point there about players suited to the Scottish game, and he just wasn't, I saw him a lot. He's a talented boy, but he just wasn't suited to Scotland. He would always want to take another touch or just kind of embellish his play with a kind of flick or a trick and all. And Scotland's too fast and too aggressive for that, and it was a shame because there's a player there. In fact, I think he's Aberdeen's top scorer, or he was until they put six past Livy. And there was so much excitement when he came at the end of the summer window. But it was like, wow, this was a kind of, looked like a statement signing. It just didn't work out. And I think that is, other clubs have experienced that in the past. People can look down their nose sometimes about Scottish football and think, oh, well, you can drop anybody in there and they'll do well. It doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. It's a demanding league. Cillian knows better than any of us, but it's a demanding league, and if a player can be really skilled but not suited to it.
Well, one player who is very much suited to it and scoring goals is Kieran Bowie at Hibs. He is seeming to be attracting a lot of interest, particularly from clubs in Italy. Cillian, do you think he's a player suited to make that big Italian move?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's coachable for them. He has the attributes probably to go there and play where it is a physical league. It's tough and demanding. I think that's probably at the minute his biggest. I think they're his biggest attributes, or his physicality. I know it's not the question, but I don't think he's quite there to go and be like a Celtic striker now. I don't think he's probably at that prolific stage for that. I think Verona probably see him as another Scottish player that they can come out, take over to Italy, that can be successful. I think it happens every year where a player goes to a different country from a league, is successful, and then suddenly maybe it's the same club, they go back into the league and go for more players, or you'll see other clubs going into the same league or taking Scottish players. So I think once you see one player go and do well, it generally benefits more players further down the line. And then it's probably just a case of what Hibs value him at now, and they're probably in a better position than they would have been in previous years, where they don't need to sell for that figure. If they really value him, that he could be a Scotland international, they can probably hold out for a little bit more. If that's, I guess, it's 3 million that it was rumoured to be. So I don't know if Hibs are value him at a higher price, or maybe they could have interest here for a similar price. I don't know, but again, it's probably a move that he'd be looking to go for. If it was me to, again, I'm probably the one person who will always pick going abroad, but I think from his point of view as well, it's probably a move that he'd be looking to push through as well.
Just desperate to try those Italian tomatoes that Scott McTominay's been going on about. That is all we've got time for. Many thanks to Michael and Cillian, and thank you very much for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we shall catch you again very soon.
On BBC Sounds. From life aboard a Russian submarine to chairman of Hearts Football Club.
At this stage, he was the hero.
But as his controversial decisions escalated...
They said, we're going to sack George. And I'm going, you can't do this.
How did Vladimir Romanov go from Hearts saviour to a wanted man?
It caused a whole load of chaos and havoc.
Romanov, Tsar of Hearts. Listen now on BBC Sounds.